Today we're going to talk about finding the area of a triangle. Previously we talked about finding the area of a parallelogram, and the area of a parallelogram is the length of the base times the length of the height. Now, the area of a triangle is base times height. You've also seen length times width, base times height, or length times width, and then times 1/2. It's half the base times the height, or the base times the height divided by 2. Why half? Because when you cut a parallelogram in half, you get two triangles. And so the area of a triangle is half of what the area of a parallelogram would be. In this case, we have our right triangle. It has our base and our height. They're always perpendicular to each other, so look for that right angle if you have a base and a height. Now, they're always perpendicular to each other. If you look at this triangle right here, our height and our base, again, are perpendicular to each other. And in this case, we have this obtuse triangle. The base is here and the height is here. Now, every triangle has multiple bases and heights. It all depends on how it's laid out. And so, like in this case, you could also use, say, this base as long as you used this height. So it just kind of depends on how the triangle is, but a lot of times we use the base as the bottom, even though that's not necessarily what it means. So if we look at this triangle right here, we need our base and our height to be able to find our area of our triangle. So we look and see what we've got. We have our base and we have our height. A good hint for that is looking for that right angle. If you don't have one, then you need to find one somewhere. There's one in there. Okay, so we would do the area is equal to half the base times the height. So it is half of 7 times 10. The order doesn't matter. You can do 10 times 7 or 7 times 10. So you can type this in on your calculator as 1 divided by 2 times 7 times 10, or you can do 7 times 10 and then divided by 2. Either way, 7 times 10 is 70, divided by 2 is 35. So the area of this triangle would be 35 meters squared. In this next one, in number 2, we want to find the area. The area would be, you want to find your base and your height. Look for that right angle right there. Find your base and your height. The area is equal to half the base times the height, which is half the base, which was 12, times the height, which is 9. 12 times 9 is 108, and half of 108 is 54. So I just typed it in like that, 108 divided by 2. You can also type in 1 divided by 2, and then times the base, times the height, however you want to do it, okay? Always look, again, for that right angle. If we look at number 3, we've got this right angle right here. So that is where our height comes from, and then your base. Now, look right here because this is a little bit tricky. With this one, you want to, the base is not 7 because this dotted line doesn't actually exist. That's not a part of the triangle. We are trying to find the area of this triangle. And it just so happens because it is an obtuse triangle that the height is hanging off of the end. So this 4 is the base. Now, the 5 is not the height because it's leaning over, so we need to find the height. In this case, we need to calculate the height. So what we want to do is use this right triangle right here. We'll use Pythagorean theorem. H squared plus 3 squared is equal to 5 squared. A squared plus B squared. A and B are the legs that form the right angle, and C is the hypotenuse of that triangle. If you remember your triples, you'll know this is a 3, 4, 5 right triangle. If not, then you've got h squared plus 9 is equal to 25. Subtract 9 from both sides, you get h squared is equal to 16. Okay, do the inverse operation, square root both sides. You get that the height is 4. So the height is 4. However, that's not what I asked for. What I asked for was the area. Area is half the base, which was 4, times the height, which is also 4. 4 times 4 is 16. Divided by 2 is 8. So that figure has an area of 8, and that would be meters squared. This is also meters squared. I didn't put that there. Okay. Now, you'll notice that we don't have any right angles in number 4 either, so we need to have one. So we take a look at that, and we notice this is an isosceles triangle. Well, we remember with an isosceles triangle that we can drop the altitude. Now, when you drop the altitude, that becomes your height. We'll call that x, okay, because that's what we need is our height. Now, here's what you have to remember. is this triangle, the isosceles triangle, is not useful for me, but this right triangle is. So what I want to do is I want to use this right triangle to find the height. Now remember, when you drop the altitude of an isosceles triangle, it bisects the base. The altitude is the perpendicular bisector, which this is 24, so that means each of these is 12. Now, just use this pink triangle and use Pythagorean theorem. So a squared, which is x squared plus 12 squared, is equal to 13 squared. Again, if you know your Pythagorean triples of 5, 12, 13, you'll recognize that the height is 5. But if not, you'll finish out your Pythagorean theorem. 169 minus 144, you get x squared is equal to 25. Or take the square root, inverse both sides, you get that x is 5. Again, that does not solve the problem. That simply gets me the pieces that I need. Now here's where you got to be really careful. The base of the triangle is 12, the whole triangle. Did I say 12? I meant 24. I can't remember if I said 24 or 12, but the base is 24. It is not 12. We're not trying to find the area of the pink triangle. We're trying to find the area of the whole thing. So the base is 24 and the height is 5. So you would take the area is 1/2 the base, which was 24, times the height, which is 5. 24 times 5 is 120. Divided by 2, you find out that the area is 60, and that's meters squared. Now, you'll notice in number 5, we don't have anything. So again, we need our base and our height, but this one's on a grid. But that's easy enough to do. We can see how far it is, so we want our base and our height. Well, here is your base, because that's easy to count. So whenever we can use horizontal and vertical, we want to. So that's your base, and then your height would be right here. Okay, so if we count that, so our base would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So our base is 6, and our height is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So our height is 6. So now we can find our area because we have the two things that we need. We got them off of the grid. Area is equal to half the base, which was 6, times the height, which was 6. 6 times 6 is 36. Divided by 2, the area is 18, and that would be units squared. Now, it also asks you to find the perimeter. Now, to find the perimeter, you have to do a little bit more work because we need the length of this side. Remember that perimeter is the sum of all the sides. So we need this side. But the good thing is this is isosceles, and so I can tell that I only have to do Pythagorean theorem on one side. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to use Pythagorean theorem on this half to find out how long FE is. So this side is 3, right? From here to here, 1, 2, 3. So we're going to do a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared. Now, this is not a triple, so 9 plus 36 is 45. So c squared is 45. Take the square root of both sides, and we're going to get a decimal. The square root of 45 is 6.708. So c is 6.71. Now, that's this side, 6.71, and this side is 6.71. And so now you do the perimeter. You add them all up. 6 plus 6.71 plus 6.71. Best practice is not to round it until you get to the end. I went ahead and did, so you get 19.42. But best practice would be to take it and use that 6.708 right there, and let's see the difference that it makes, times 2 plus 6, and you get 19.42. So in this case, it didn't make that much difference when you were rounding to the hundredth. But sometimes it does, so you want to be careful when you round. Don't round until the end of the problem. All right, and then the last problem we want to do is on this one, I am telling you what the area is, and I am telling you what the base is, and I'm asking you to find the height. Well, we know that area is equal to 1/2 of base times height. So now just substitute everything into your formula. Area is 238 is equal to 1/2 the base, which is 17, times the height, which is x. Now, you actually have two choices of how you want to handle this. Okay, let me show you both. One is to just take half of 17. So we would have 238 is equal to half of 17. Go ahead and do the math that you can do. 17 divided by 2 is 8.5x. Now divide both sides by 8.5. So we have 238 divided by 8.5, and you get 28. So the height is 28. Now another way to handle it so that you don't have decimals and you don't have to worry about it is it could have said 238 is equal to 1/2 of 17 times x. I could multiply this side by 2 over 1 and this side by 2 over 1 because that 2 over 1 cancels that 1/2. They multiply together to give you 1. So 238 times 2 is 476. So now you have 476 is equal to 17x. However, when you divide both sides by 17, you get that x is 28. So it does not matter. You can multiply both sides by 2 to get rid of that fraction, to multiply away that fraction. Or you can multiply the 1/2 times the 17, or by whatever number that is, and get the math and do it there. So you can deal with it here, or you can deal with it by multiplying by 2. Just depends on whatever you are the most comfortable with. So in summary, the area of a triangle is half the base times the height, or base times height divided by 2, and base and height are always perpendicular to each other.